Okay, let's get this thing started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Felix Jones. Felix, are you ready to do this?
Oh, yes, Dane, I am ready for you.
Brilliant. Felix is a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians and a magician member of the Academy of Magical Arts at the world famous Magic Castle in Hollywood. Felix is a frequent performer in the Magic Castle showrooms and has also appeared at several Las Vegas venues. He performs his acclaimed comedy magic and mind reading show in nightclubs for private parties and corporate events. Some of Felix's clients include Amazon, John Hancock Investment Management, the Otis College of Art and Design, the Taliga Golf Club, and the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. Felix, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Sure. So, what I do is I do mind reading, which is also called mentalism. In the past year, though, with Zoom, I've incorporated a lot more magical effects and a few illusions. So during the pandemic, I was working exclusively on Zoom. And then when things started loosening up, I had three private parties in a row. So because of with Zoom, all the tricks I was doing on Zoom, I had to get back into the magic saddle and
Yeah.
retrain myself from the routines that I've done hundreds of times that I couldn't do over Zoom. Happily, there are tons of videos of me online, YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel, and I was able to watch those videos and retrain myself into the routines that I had completely forgotten.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. We got to keep practicing if you're not doing it
It's
live all the
you know with
time.
magic it's nonstop, and if you let it up for even a minute, there is muscle memory when you're doing
Mm,
a particular effect. You literally, when you've done it hundreds of times, I don't have to think about it. I
right.
can just my hands move as they're supposed to. My mouth moves as it's supposed to, saying the
Right.
words that are going to work to get people to understand what I'm doing. If you don't, then yes, you lose it a little bit. But with Zoom, I was doing many performances, but I had to completely reshape my material for a
Mm.
Zoom audience. So I'm very interactive, whether it's in live, performing live, or if it's on a Zoom show. I made sure that I wasn't going to do just a bunch of card tricks. I wanted my audience to be involved as much as possible because they're watching me on, a small screen. So I worked very hard at developing material that was specific for Zoom. Now, right now, of all of that material that I did, there's only two that I'm able to perform live. So I had to go back to the my old bag of tricks, Felix's bag of tricks, and revive some that had fallen by the wayside. But the first party that I did after Zoom, it was a group of ladies, and they were all, I believe, somewhat related. And it was on Mother's Day, and all of them had their mothers who had passed away either within the year or with 2 years, and definitely a few from COVID. So they wanted me to be light and funny, entertain them. And they were a rowdy group. It was so much fun getting back into it. And even though I may have struggled with the move every now and then, they were just so into it and laughing that it was a really joyous time for them as it was for me because I was performing live again.
Yeah, you're back at it. And I think it's
Hmm.
so cool that you were able to so successfully transition and evolve into making Zoom your platform to do your magic. I was watching a bit of your reel and some of your content, and you really do. It's not just like watching TV and just watching someone do a card trick. Like you really appear to be making a very inclusive experience, which, I mean, props to you. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do.
It is, and it wasn't easy. It took me a long time to put the Zoom show together, let alone the technical. If you watched in it, you saw that I had a lot of technical stuff going on with
Yeah.
my green screen and the fades. So I really wanted to have the technology up to speed as well as the magic. So I had to work on those at the same time. And I believe the magic I got down a lot sooner than I did the technical things with Zoom because they're all the shows I did. There's always some demon that happens 15 minutes before the audience is wants to be admitted. And I had a wonderful stage manager. His name is Milo Siegel, and he would just vamp with the audience. But you know what? People really didn't care. They were so excited to be there and see this type of performance that they had never seen before.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Let's move on to this first section here. And Felix, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
It's actually a quote that I really live by and I talk with a lot of magicians about. And what it is, magic without meaning is just a trick. And I
Mm,
find that really important that there was a study that was done by a famous magician about 5 or 6 years ago. And the findings shocked everybody because, as it turned out, card magic was the least favorite of this big survey, and mentalism was the number one. And the reason being is that as a mentalist, I need to connect with people emotionally. And the
right,
only way to do that is that what I am saying has meaning to it. You know, that each of my routines has a beginning, middle, and an end.
mm,
And I tell a story within 3 to 5 minutes, and the participant is part of that story. And their emotions, their memories is what makes that beyond a trick. And that's what I think
right.
is missing from some magicians. Not all, many do this. In fact, I'm part of the Jeff McBride Magic and Mystery School, famous school that's in Las Vegas by world famous Jeff McBride. And this is what they teach. This is the mantra. Put as much meaning, pack meaning into your material, and people will be walloped. They will go beyond, wow, how'd they do that, to, I need to think about this. I felt something. I really feel that he read my mind. And that's the difference between doing a bunch of tricks, which by the way, this study that I just cited, magic tricks were the ones that people forgot instantly. I mean, card tricks, forgive me. Card tricks are what
Right.
people forgot instantly.
Right. I mean, that makes sense to, I mean, you need the relevancy really is what it is to someone to have that meaning, right?
Yeah, card tricks are tons of fun, and I
Yeah.
admire the skill because there are some friends of mine who are just fantastic at card magic, and they're really great performers. So I'm a fan of card tricks, at least inventive card tricks. There's some
Yep.
that you see all the time, but every now and then I will see a magician at the Magic Castle do something. I went, whoa, I've never seen that before. I
Yeah,
love that.
that's very cool. And would you say that when you put your, say you're doing a whole show, your whole routine, do you think it's beneficial to layer in, a bit of that really high feel, high touch, or that really meaningful, those tricks or those things, and mix them with the less feeling things to have more of like any kind of an arc through your show? Is that something that's helpful?
No. Every single one of my routines has got something to it that has will have some meaning to it. So, for example,
Yeah.
there's a new one that I am doing. I started doing it live at those three parties I previously mentioned. And what it does is that it combines three effects with silks that all three of them are not performed much these days. And nobody has ever performed them as I'm doing them all three together. So
Right.
that's great because there's a lot of skill with that. But I begin the routine, and the music is, I'm actually using If I Were a Carpenter by Bobby Darin's version of it. And because it brings the show from all the high pitch and the hilarious things that Felix says, it brings it down to a real level because I talk about one time or another, our hearts were broken or we were the heartbreakers.
Right.
And so I put this meaning at the top of it. And I am telling you, I do this, and it is one of the, probably these days, it is the only routine that I do that you can hear a pin drop. People are,
Wow.
they're amazed by the silk work, but the story that I'm telling, and because basically what I'm telling is that if I could have done this, I broke someone's heart and I could have done this and I regret now. And so let me show you what I could have done back then. And I
Mm.
quote a little Shakespeare, and it's a really beautiful piece. And right now, it's my favorite piece to perform because it does have that. It adds depth to the show. It has that, you do have to build a show so that it builds up and then you bring it down a little with, and then you go back up to the big smash finale.
Right, but you always keep the relevancy and the meaning in it and all the
Yes,
numbers. Very
always.
cool. Love that. Let's dig into this next section here. And Felix, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer, and I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we will experience, and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
So when I was first starting out doing mentalism, I was looking at some older material and trying to adapt it to myself, and I really didn't have the confidence, and so it really wasn't terribly good. But then I was asked to do a charity benefit, and it was the first time that I started introducing material that, as I've been saying, has meaning to it. And I was terrified. I was shaking like crazy,
Yeah.
and I heard the audience response, the laughs and the shocked expressions, and I felt, okay, I need, this is what I need to always be confident in what I'm doing. Now, when I was an actor many eons ago, and I had terrible stage fright. I would literally throw up before a performance. It was just awful. And I had a little bit of that as I was going in, as I was performing magic for the first time. Now, mind you, I've only been performing magic for going on 6 years now. So it was a whole big change for me. And I had to get over this because when you're at the Magic Castle, there are a couple of performance spaces, and there are bright lights that are shining on you. And if your hand, because people are watching your hands constantly,
Yeah,
so
you're a room full of professional magicians. Oh my.
yes. And if that hand just shakes just the slightest, I would hear it. People would say, all right, you've got to get over this. Your hand is shaking, you're stumbling. And it was just fear. And after a few times and lots of encouragement from fellow magicians, I don't have the problem anymore at all. And it's interesting to me now at, my ripe old age that I don't have any stage fright. So that's always been the most debilitating thing for me as a performer. And I know many performers have got that same thing, that same issue. But I managed to find it, I think, by making sure I was always delving into my character. As long as I was within the character, I could say and do anything. That doesn't mean I don't get nervous, because if you don't get nervous, then I feel anyway, if I don't get nervous, then I'm going to flub something. So just that little bit of butterflies in the stomach really helps drive me
Yeah.
forward to do my best, my absolute best.
Yeah, I really like how you said if I could delve into the character, I can say and do anything. It's really committing to what it is you're doing and embracing all of it. And that, I mean, I think it goes completely the same for whether it's being a magician or you're doing a play or a musical, or even if you've got to get up on stage and you've got to just give a talk as yourself, but you're giving your talk as, I guess, in that sense, the character would be yourself, but the way you've been billed or the way that someone has chosen to perceive you on their stage, and to just own that in its fullest. And that gives you the confidence to move forward confidently.
No, it really helps a lot that from my theater background to create my theatrical character as mentalist. So I write every word. I used to write theater, and so I know the structure that needs to go into it. I
Mm-hmm.
also choose specific music that's going to represent the ideas or the emotions that I want for each. How I move, every single move that I make, where the props are set, whether I turn left, turn right, all of that, all these theatrical standards. If you're in theater, this is what you have to know at all times. And so I do that. I bring it all. I'm my own producer, my own director. But fortunately, I have a band of really fantastic magicians who will, you know, point out maybe you could do this instead.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, when we see magicians, and especially if it's, I guess it depends really on the act at the time, but oftentimes it's everything is set up to seem very casual and very pedantic and
Yes.
to be like, oh, we just stumbled across this. But just like any performance, any stage show, any play, every prop is exactly where it needs to be. Every move is choreographed, and it's the same thing, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? I also spike, here's an old theater term, I also spike the floor of exactly where I want the audience to stand. So when I bring participants up, I've even got that marked down. Particularly if I'm doing a private party, it's not so much at the Magic Castle though, because that's not true. When I'm in the showrooms, I do spike. I do spike the floor, and I know where people are going to stand. I want to make sure that because it's a time thing too. The show has got to move. When you're in one of the showrooms, it's got to be 40 minutes at most. And
Right.
so you can't waste time with moving people around and getting them to stand in a particular space. So there's a little piece of tape on the floor, and so I know exactly where someone needs to go. But I do this for private parties, corporate events as well. I also try to recreate the Magic Castle experience because many times there'd be a big room with tables and chairs because they usually have had some sort of a meal and a meeting. And then I go on. And so I actually tell them all, let's all bring our chairs and we'll have an aisle down the center. And I move the chairs and I make it like a performance venue. I always tell them, I want to recreate the Magic Castle experience for you right here. And so I do that too. I move the audience. I make sure the audience is in a really good position to see everything, of course, hear everything, but also to be coming up because during the course of a show, I will have at least a dozen people come up with every routine. So, I learned all that from Jeff McBride because he's absolutely brilliant at this, where you need to move your audience around and what you need to do to make it the optimal experience for everyone.
And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be a magician or an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing in the industry. Tell us about that.
The experience that comes to mind is when I performed in Las Vegas at Jeff McBride's Wonderground. So it is a monthly venue, and Jeff pulls in some of the world's best magicians, and he asked me to perform. Now, he had also asked me that afternoon to make some script changes to my this particular effect that I was doing. So I was pacing in the parking lot before I had to go on, going through
Mm.
the script, moving my hands, going through the script. And then it was time to go on. And I went on and I was again not at all nervous, but at the end of it, these magicians that I've seen or read about, they came up to me and they said, "You really have something special that I've never seen before." So that was incredible validation for me that all of the hard work was paying off and going to pay off.
Yeah.
So that was a really unique moment for me. It was transformational. I
Very
felt
cool.
so confident that these famous magicians would actually come up and approach me and say this.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you also mentioned a little bit ago that you haven't been doing magic, since you were 4 or anything, but what inspired you to get into magic?
Everybody always asks that, and it does start as a child. So I got into magic from comic books, and
Oh,
I was a big comic book fan. I had tons of them, and on the back covers, you probably may in the olden days, there were always magic tricks that you could send away for. So I did. I started sending away to for different tricks. I would try them out, and then I would get a bunch of friends together and perform in somebody's garage. So I was, I guess, probably about 11 at that point. And then I was in a summer school play called Hoodoo the Magician. And I was 13. I was Hoodoo, and basically it's about a shyster magician who cons people, but then what happens is that he's not really doing magic, but then what happens is that he actually understands what he's been doing, and his magic becomes, that was very influential. But then as I mentioned briefly, I then was in dramatic arts. And so I stepped away from it for a long time. I'd always had my interest in it, but I wasn't really pursuing it actively. I had a big career in theater for many years. And then I wrote a play about Houdini and Arthur Conan Doyle called Flim Flam, Houdini, and the Hereafter. And it had a very successful production at Malibu Playhouse. And a bunch of Magic Castle historians who were Houdini experts, in fact, they called themselves the Houdini Nuts, they came to the show and they said, "You really need to come to the Magic Castle. You need to become a member." So at that point, when we were in rehearsal, I had a couple of fantastic magicians I was working with. First is Jonathan Levitt, who's currently on the board of trustees, a fantastic magician and actor, one of my favorite X-Files episodes, by the way, with the great Ricky Jay. And Jonathan worked with me on the script and said, "No, you cannot have someone pull a tablecloth with a fully set table." And then the next magician I had, Jim Bentley, who used to do a Houdini act. I started really getting drawn in again. I could feel it. I could feel the passion building up. And so when I got the audition for the Magic Castle, Jim actually trained me for 3 months. I was doing several Houdini routines. And at that moment, when I was accepted, and it was one of the most difficult auditions of my life. And if anybody who's listening and is an actor, I'm sure you've had terrible audition stories, but it was so difficult because they were very pleasant and chatty, the three or four, I believe, on the audition committee, and wanting to know what magic books I had read and why I was passionate about magic. And then all that, they said, "Well, why don't you do something for us?" And so all that pleasant conversation stopped. And this is what I said earlier. They literally just looked at my hands through the whole audition. And then when it was over, they were back to chatting pleasantly again. And that was it. And I did get in 2015. And so it's been full speed since then. I've never let up. I've been in magic, doing magic now since then.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that story. Really great. Well, let's piggyback on the previous question, the spotlight question, and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, what was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment.
All right. My favorite booked in moment happened at, so the Academy of Magical Arts has an annual awards show. And I'd been performing at the castle in the what they call the impromptu rooms down in the basement. They're really nice venues, and so I've performed there quite a bit. But I didn't quite get the attention of the director of entertainment, even though I was filming things and sending things. And so at the annual awards, I was walking up to the theater, and the director started shouting my name. And I went over to him and he said, I've watched all of your video. You're going to be on that stage next year. You're the one who's going to be getting awards. And he said, call me on Monday and I will set you up for your show in the showroom. And that's what happened.
Whoa.
I know, it was intense. I was literally shaking afterwards when I went inside. And then I had to do the whole award show, be a part of the award show. And
Yeah.
I was still just ecstatic. I couldn't be happier.
Oh, so good. I love that. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And we're still, especially in the States, we're getting out of the pandemic, but how do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Hmm. So right now, I have been teamed up with two magicians. We teamed up about 3 months ago. Simone Turkington, who's a regular at the Magic Castle, Chris Heron, who is in the Bay Area. He performs as Faust and myself, and I created and produced a show called the Orpheum Circuit Tour. And it was all based on the style of magic that was in vaudeville in the 20s at the Orpheum circuits. So we performed that originally as a couple of fundraisers, but then we did that as the Magic Castle's actual virtual show as
Mm.
well. And now, since we're moving away from Zoom, Simone and I actually, right before the Magic Castle shut down in March, a year ago, year and a half ago, we were supposed to be performing in the showroom together. We had created this really fun show where the two of us were in the 1960s and the audience was invited guests. We created names for all of the audience. It was a lot of fun, and it got postponed. So we're going to be doing that again, probably in December at the Magic Castle. I don't have the exact date yet, but it is going to be coming up. And we do a very interesting take on a famous routine called the Spirit Cabinet that actually Houdini used to do, but a couple of famous magicians in the about 1960s, 1970s, Francis Willard and Glenn Falkenstein, really recreated it to be exciting and thrilling. And what we did is that we changed the genders on it because normally the woman, Frances, was the one who was always tied up and hypnotized, and all the spooky things happened inside the cabinet when she was tied up in there. So we changed it, and so I'm the one who's all tied up. And a lot of fun and spooky things happen during our show as well. So that is the big one that's going to be coming up in December that I'm really excited about.
Very cool. And you've mentioned the Magic Castle consistently through the interview. For our audience members, can you just give a quick synopsis of what the Magic Castle is, especially in the magician world?
Oh, sure. So the Magic Castle has been called the Mecca of Magic. And what it is that it's a private club. It was started in the 1960s by Milt Larson, his brother Bill, and Bill's wife Irene, and grew into this. It was very small at the very beginning. It was just like a small bar and one small showroom. And then over the years, it grew in popularity, and celebrities were packing the place. So now what it is, and it's a Victorian mansion that's been magically rebuilt and added onto. So it has, I believe, it's five full service bars. There are seven or eight performance spaces, including a large theater and two medium sized theaters, yes, and a fantastic restaurant. So you go for the night. You go and you have a meal and you go see the shows, as many as you possibly can get into. The lines are usually packed before the pandemic. You needed at least 2 or 3 months to get a reservation, a dinner reservation. And then when you're there, you had to wait online to see a show because it was very popular. So it just recently reopened, and they have been slowly incorporating live magic and amping up again. So I believe next week is going to be the first time where they're lifting a lot of the COVID restrictions. Now, mind you, this is like a day to day, particularly with
Yeah.
with this new Delta variant. But right now, they are planning on going forward. They have a lot of strict COVID restrictions, so they're really obeying that. They are obeying what the county is asking the restaurant to do. So it's an unusual space. They had a hard time reopening, because not only is it a restaurant, so you had to deal with that in capacity, it was also a bar and it was also a nightclub or theater. So they had like
Yeah.
triple whammy on them, and trying to overcome all the restrictions. But now it's moving its way back again, and I'm expecting that certainly by the fall, when I know that they want to be fully running up and running again for October, because Halloween is the busiest time. There's always a theme. The place is all decked out. You have to come in a costume. It doesn't have to be part of the theme, but all the staff is wearing themed costume. It's so much fun. So I haven't been back, so I am actually going next weekend when it's somewhat fully opened again, and I'm really thrilled. Oh, by the way, it's also private invitation only. You can't just show up. You need to know a magician and get an invitation, or someone has a magician connection to the Magic Castle and you're sort of like riding on their coattails on in. But that's it. That's what keeps the Magic Castle premier and very special, is that not anybody can just walk in.
Oh, that is so cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. The summary of
Yeah.
the Magic Castle. Love it. And it is now time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Oh, deep breath, go.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Lack of confidence.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Honestly, the one thing that I can think of is I have been constantly told to not give up, always strive to be best, and there'll be ups, there'll be downs, but don't give up.
Yes. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
What works for me in particular is when I'm performing, I'm dressed to the nines. I always look fantastic. I look great in a tux.
Yeah.
And I have more and more been incorporating this martini persona. So I'm not drunk or anything, but I want to make sure that everyone's having a good time, because as we like to say, and magicians like to say, having a drink makes the magic better. And what I have found, that every time I like sip a toast, because I always have a martini on stage. Sometimes there has some gin in it, but most times not. But when I take a sip and I'm toasting people, they want to take a sip. So again, it's part of that interaction. But I think my martini, my tux persona, and I got to say, I have the best hairstylist in the world. His name is Marcus Wolf, and my hair is just tops.
Yeah, you're lucky to have hair.
I am, but I got to tell you, I get commented on. The hair is as much a character as I am.
Really?
It's constantly commented on. I have people stop me. I have stylists. I have magicians stop me. Where did you get your color? This is natural. This is all for real. But I do make a big thing about the hair actually in my act. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, I love that. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that's maybe a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, piece of technology that you've found is helping your career right now.
Oh yeah, the big one is always go to the past. Look at the past, because what's happened is that magic is very faddish, FAD, faddish, and magicians always want to do the newest thing, and so there's a
Right.
lot of copycats of doing the new thing. So what I do is I go back to mind reading and magic from the 1930s, the 1940s, and I look at those resources, and I have to make sure that a particular routine is matching my martini character, and then I rewrite it and I make it my own. So going back to these old resources is the best way of doing something new.
Very cool. Love that. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I think it goes back to what I've been saying is that I lacked the confidence. And recently, what I've been hearing, and this is from different people, it's not just like one person, a couple people, couple magicians, whatever, say to me, "You're a lot better than you think you are." And so I guess I still have that because I'm so new to the game, new to the business, that I still have that little bit of, am I good enough? And
Yeah.
I keep working on that right now. Is that I know I am. I do know I'm good enough because I hear it over and over. But there's still that little thing, right? That little bit of insecurity inside of me. It's saying, you're not quite up to their level yet. But because where I perform and I perform a lot, I am. Clearly, I am.
Yeah, for sure. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I started this when I was 59, and I feel that people who are making these life changes are a bit scared or a bit worried about their age. And I just say, don't put that aside. If you've got the talent, if you've got the stamina, the energy, just go for it. Just forget about the age and just be exactly the performer you want to be.
Oh, I think that's incredible advice, especially in such a time of flux and people quitting their jobs and moving all over the world, and everything's changing right now on a much bigger scale than normal. And I think
Yeah.
that's incredible advice and very relevant for today.
Thank you. Yes, it's. I don't have an age issue, and I know when you're in Hollywood, it's always a big issue. I think so much has changed in the business now that you can have a fantastic career in your 60s, in your 70s. That's to me is what the biggest change that I've seen since I've been here. I've been here since 1990, and it was all about being young, being hip, being cool, being beautiful. Now that's changed. It's changed. People are appreciating performers who are, as I like to say, seasoned professionals. And
Yes, love it. Felix, it is time now to wrap up this interview, which means it's also time to give yourself a plug. Where can our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
I am available for, even though I perform all the time at the Magic Castle, I'm available for any sort of event and very reasonable. You can check me out at my website, felixjonesmentalist.com. And get in touch. I respond by phone, by email. And if you've got an event coming on, no matter if it's 5 people or 500 people, I would be very happy to perform for you, particularly as the holiday season comes up. It's my favorite time because I really get to meet a lot of people and they're all happy and joyful. So check out my website. You'll also see videos. You can go to YouTube, my YouTube channel as well, and see what I do.
Fantastic. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything. I put the links to all the different places you can connect with Felix. And those are all in the description of this episode, so you can easily connect with him. And also, be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone aspiring to create a career in the entertainment industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything Felix gave us today in the interview. If you like this episode, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Felix, thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful to get connected, and I think you might be my first magician on the show. So,
everyone has a first time, Dane.
That's it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to join the You Booked It community. Inside, you can connect with your people, build industry relationships, unlock unlimited masterclasses, and access the tools and training you need to create sustainable career momentum. Get your invite link right now. Tap the link in the show notes or head over to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite, and we'll see you there.